Let's take a look back and reflect upon what we've done over the past 7 weeks. I hope that you had found this course very interesting and fitting to your occupational needs. Certainly it is amazing to see how fast these weeks go when you do have an interest and sincere passion for the topics that we've covered over the past several weeks. We started out this course by discussing some of the issues that were confronting FEMA as well as Incident Command during the course of both Katrina and the SARS incidents. Although these two incidents that are dealing directly with disasters and dealing with public health emergencies are very, very similar in nature. However, they still need to be taken into consideration in regards to their lack of communication, lack of knowledge to whom is in charge, as well as the crisis time and event taking place. Both instances with these events, the media played a key role in determining what type of information was going to be disseminated to the general public, indeed. The need to have a good public information officer, as well as an incident command, open and providing the community with the necessary information to minimize the amount of panic and distress that were current in both of these instances. Whether it is with public health or with a catastrophe such as Katrina, the need arises to have complete transparency in meeting the available needs to those communities and the community stakeholders. During the week, we took a look at some communication issues in week 1, some of the incident command issues, and some of the overall policy issues that were confronting local law enforcement agencies as well as other agencies responding to the Los Angeles riots. As we can see from our readings, as well as the vivid images back in the early 1990s, it was imperative to be on the same page and understand the same language that was being used during radio communications. The use of one type of radio and not having compatibility with another type of radio definitely showed the frustration amongst the responding agencies, creating high stress and high tension at times during the riots. In essence, being able to coordinate efforts prior to such an event, performing a tabletop exercise with the police, fire, and other EMS personnel within the EMS system are some of the lessons learned from this incident. Obviously, some policies and some procedures were then changed after the Los Angeles riots. As we proceeded into the subsequent week, we learned a little bit about performing a full-scale exercise and the importance of having a full-scale exercise within the community, the training, the education, the preparedness, and the ability to maintain life safety during training as well as during the real event are all areas that need to be taken into consideration and handling a full-scale exercise. Full-scale exercises may take a complete year to complete, and as well as discussing the objectives and creating a framework and working alongside so many community stakeholders and representatives in order to ensure that the realism for the exercise is complete. Also, ensuring that all participants understand the main objectives of the exercise, and once the exercises are complete, there should be an after-action report that is created in order to provide suggestions and room for opportunities in upcoming exercises. But more importantly, it is to include those opportunities within the policies themselves. In looking back, in week 4, we covered issues surrounding both terrorism attacks as well as natural disasters. We looked at the need for international assistance when the disaster or the terrorist event is of great magnitude, but more importantly, the need to work alongside different community stakeholders and representatives during a time of crisis. A crisis brings together groups of responders that may have never worked together, nor may have worked in this type of disaster situation previously. It'll come from different responding types, different types of responding agencies, and different representation from different professions. It will come from different levels of government, whether it be with the state, local, or federal levels. Adjoining jurisdictions are also going to be included in crisis events when they do take place and are called upon for their resources. Depending on the different types of situations that may arise, there may be other parties or other arriving agencies internationally to assist within the disaster efforts. Thus, it is imperative to have good working relationships not only with local jurisdictions, but also with international partners that might be able to help in the event of a true emergency if outside resources were going to be needed. Moving forward to week 5, during week 5 we switched gears a little bit and took a look at the Ebola crisis that started out in West Africa. We looked at the several areas of concern to EMS providers out in the field, as well as those healthcare workers within the hospital or clinical facility. Understanding the need to have proper education and training for EMS field workers is necessitated by the gravity of the virus. Ebola is one of the latest outbreaks that we have experienced here in the United States. There is a true issue in regards to the deadly outbreak due to the fact there is no true cure for this virus. Emergency medical services personnel, as well as other personnel within the hospital, should be aware of the signs and symptoms that people may experience. These signs and symptoms that may appear are anywhere ranging from 2 to 21 days after exposure to Ebola. But on the average, it takes approximately 8 to 10 days for these signs and symptoms to appear. Some of the symptoms that people may experience will include fever, severe headache, muscle pain, weakness, fatigue, diarrhea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and other unexplained hemorrhaging. As far as recovery from Ebola is concerned, it takes a good supportive clinic as well as the person's immune system to adapt for the recovery. Ebola, in the next 10 years, you need to be very cautious, and precautionary measures need to be taken due to the exposure within the hospital, medical personnel, and those who may be coming within contact of anyone from international areas. During week 6, the things that fall together nicely in demonstrating the need for international and interagency collaboration and communication during event need to occur. During emergencies, disasters, or terrorist events, it is imperative for the local resources as well as the federal resources to be able to communicate together and work alongside one another during an event. There are several important mechanisms that can be used for governmental collaboration, which include the Incident Command System, the National Incident Management System, NIMS, and during these incidents, it becomes so obvious that there needs to be interaction with each other in order to provide for flexible and adaptable emergency management approaches in order to overcome the situation at hand. Local governments, of course, are responsible for responding to the disasters within their jurisdictions, receiving support from local, state, and federal agencies, and eventually this will depend on the type of incident and how large scale this incident may be. This brings us to week number 7, and tying this all together of what we learned throughout the past several weeks. Remember, there is a need for high performance in any type of emergency. These types of emergencies that we discussed during the past 7 weeks need to have an excellent response and understand that it is a high awareness and embedded expertise that is needed for a rapid assessment and recognition of the decisions that are going to be made, creating a comprehensive script regarding the roles and responsibilities of those that were going to be involved in the emergency. A well-developed method that is customized for a specific instance, such as a hurricane, for example, wildland fire, or tornado, and a highly developed skill is needed to execute these routines during an emergency, disaster, or terrorist event. Also, the organization and its response to the overall adaptability that will be needed during these times will also be imperative for the success that leaders will need to follow as well. Leaders need to be trained and use their knowledge regarding this type of event, whether it's a tornado or a hurricane, and need to organize themselves in order to perform the command and general staffing issues throughout the event. Command presence is also necessitated during such time in order to ensure that the hierarchical structure is kept in order, as well as the precision and execution that is needed to perform a successful event for life safety measures. Just like some of the signs and symptoms in that we see with patients, we need to understand the signs and symptoms for emergency leaders, initial responses that will be important and not delaying any resources that may be needed. One final area that I would like to mention is regarding the crisis itself and the resources that have been deployed for that situation. Teams may find themselves in difficult situations at times in order to switch modes and switch trains of thoughts during the times of crisis. A good leader will be able to direct, engage, and communicate with others immediately that the situation has extraordinary demands and that there is more room for emergent needs, and these needs to be addressed during the times of crisis. I'm thanking you for your participation throughout the semester. It is my sincere hope that you did learn something from these events that we discussed throughout the coursework, as well as throughout our discussions. I mention normally both to my students and colleagues, these are some areas that we are not too fond of talking about over dinner time conversation, but as you can see, it is necessary to hold these conversations and discussions in order to protect the lives of so many people that are out there, our friends, our families, our colleagues, and those people whose lives we may never know that we've ever made a positive social change in, but because we took the time to take a course such as this to discuss the unpleasantries in life, we have the opportunity to deal with making a difference and making our areas a lot safer, as well as our communities. I wish you all the best of luck in your current endeavors as well as your future endeavors, and I appreciate your consideration in taking this course.